I'm a 20-year veteran of the housing industry, and I've been working closely with buyers agents, listing agents, buyers, and sellers for that entire time. In reading article after article on this settlement between the NAR and the plaintiffs, I've seen consistent reference that sellers often felt powerless to negotiate a better deal for themselves in light of the historic norm that the seller would pay both the buyer's agent and the listing agent commissions. And the idea behind the articles is that sellers felt taken advantage of and that they had absolutely no choice. So you're telling me that sellers had no choice? They couldn't choose Open Door, Knock, Redfin, Flat Fee Group, Homecoin, Houseo, Unreal Estate, Duffy Realty, HomeZoo, Fizbo.com, Congress Realty, Simply List, Dream Street, Broker Direct, MLS, Clever, Ideal Agent, Upnest, Preview, and hundreds of other flat fee or discount brokerages. On March 15th, the New York Times published an article that said American home sellers could see a significant drop in the cost to sell their homes, and American home buyers could save up to 30% in fees thanks to this settlement agreement. Okay, so we're going to put a pin in the logic that stipulates that buyer's agents are going to be perfectly fine making 30% less money, that buyer's agents are going to give the exact same level of performance, dedication, experience, advocacy with 30% less income. I mean, how many of us would be comfortable if there was a lawsuit that said, the consumer would really benefit if you would take a 30% reduction in your take-home pay? You see, I can personally attest that buyer's agents often work nights, they work weekends, they work holidays, they sacrifice time with family, they strategize on their clients' behalf, sometimes to their own personal financial disadvantage, so their clients can win a bidding war in a historically competitive housing market. But sure, let's assume they're good with taking a 30% pay cut and consider a side-by-side comparison of a $500,000 purchase before and after this settlement. So before the settlement, a seller would be selling their home for $500,000. They would pay 6% in agent commissions, that's $30,000. And let's just assume they're going to give a $15,000 credit towards closing cost to a prospective buyer. That means the net proceeds to the seller is $455,000. So after the settlement, real estate is supposed to get more affordable, right? That's the whole point. But the only way that really happens is if the seller reduces the sales price by the amount they would have to pay for the buyer's commission. That means that $500,000 purchase is now selling for $485,000, right? That's great. But they're still going to have to pay the listing agent commissions, and at 3%, that's just a hair under $15,000. You're still paying the $15,000 seller contribution to closing costs. So at the end of the day, the seller's only netting out just a few $100s better than they were before. Pre-settlement, the buyer's paying $500,000 for the home. Let's say they're putting down 5%, that's $25,000. That seller contribution of $15,000, that's covering all their closing costs. So their financial commitment to purchasing this property is $25,000. Their monthly payment, assuming an interest rate of 6.5%, is right around $3,657, $3,657 principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Post-settlement, that sales price has now come down to $485,000. That's good news for the buyer, right? They're still putting down 5%, a little less than $25,000 now. But they're on the hook to pay the buyer's agent commission. And let's assume that commission's been cut by 30%. That's what everyone has been saying, that there'll be a 30% savings on fees. So now instead of making 3%, that buyer's agent is only making 2%, but it's the buyer's responsibility to pay them. So $15,000 seller contribution to closing costs, well now $9,700 of that is going to pay the buyer's agent, only leaving a little more than $5,000 towards closing costs for our home buyer. That means the home buyer now has to bring closing costs and their down payment to the table, whereas they didn't have to do that before. This means the buyer's out of pocket somewhere to the tune of about $29,500 to $30,000 for that very same home purchase. And this is an important distinction. Cash-strapped buyers can ill afford to have to bring more money to the table in this super competitive environment where real estate has become so unaffordable. So you might be saying that the buyer's getting a better deal and they are getting a lower sales price. That's true. Their monthly payment will go down to $35.64, whereas it was $36.57. That's a savings of $93 per month. That's not nothing. But you're also asking them to bring about $4,500 more to the table. And if you divide that $4,500 by the $93 per month savings, it's going to take that home buyer in excess of 4 years to save back that cash. That's a very poor return on investment. So the good news is you can still architect your real estate transaction just like you did before, with the seller paying the buyers and the listing agent commissions. And in many cases, in most cases, that works out to the benefit of all parties. And let's face it, sellers become buyers, right? As soon as you sell your home, you have to live somewhere. More than likely, you're buying a new home, and then you're the beneficiary of a structure that has stood the test of time for decades. In the meantime, the best thing you can do is communicate your needs and your wants and your pain points to your real estate agent. They're your advocate, and they're going to be able to structure a deal that's beneficial for you.